Hey folks, it's Graham Coath, another My Music. It's the best time of the week, Nevaris. It really is. I'm going to be speaking to you in a minute. It's the best time of the week. It's here. It's Friday. It's 5 o'clock, right? So
Yeah.
everybody, right? Whatever you're doing, you just stop what you're doing now. Okay, put down the spreadsheets. Stop crunching the numbers. Stop cutting and pasting stuff into CRMs. Stop it now, right? Just chill. Go and get yourself a quick drink if you must whilst the advert's playing, or watch the advert because that's good for the sponsors. And then when you come back, you and I will all speak together to Nevaris, and we'll have a lovely three-way conversation about music, possibly the most powerful force in the universe, other than God, right? And that's what's coming up right in the next minute or so. So just hold tight while we do this. I need to get going, Mel. See you later. Brilliant. And now that everybody is relaxed, they've stopped working, we can chat, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing
good. Where are you coming from, sir?
Well, actually, I'm in Pennsylvania, which is cool. Ironic because I'm, born and raised in New York and spent all of the decades until last year. My wife got a job in Pennsylvania for some much needed income and, packed up and moved to Pennsylvania.
Right. And what's that like as a bit of a culture shift from?
It's a massive culture shift.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot actually about, I've been in New York City and specifically the island of Manhattan for the vast part of my life. And I realized I'm so comfortable around New York City people. I find people from New York to be the warmest, friendliest people. And everything that people say about New York, I think it's just rubbish. It's not true.
Yeah.
And I learned that by leaving, and then going back, I was like, oh, it's so warm, so much warmth. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Well, no, that's good. There's some lovely songs about New York, obviously, and there's some lovely songs about Manhattan.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was Prefab Sprout, Hey Manhattan. Do you remember that?
I don't. I wish I did.
You don't remember that? Check it out afterwards. Hey Manhattan, here we come. Lovely. Pennsylvania now. Is that culture shift? Has that taught you anything that's going to go into your music?
Well, it's weird to move anywhere during a pandemic because you don't really.
Yeah, you shouldn't be moving. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't get out as much to interact with people. But I think, maybe just, it's a little quieter, a little more solitude. I think there's something to be said for that. A little more just getting into the wilderness a little bit, which, I never did. So, I might write some songs about the wilderness, metaphorically and literally.
Yeah, maybe the next album be your wilderness album.
Might be.
Just use that.
It might be.
Yeah. Just use Pennsylvania as a metaphor. Maybe.
Well, head for the wilderness is kind of like a concept of away from all the modern technology. I actually kind of started to think about that as a concept to get into the wilderness.
That would be cool. Yeah. What you need to do to go alongside that is watch some of those classic road trip films and then maybe just do a little road trip round the area as well, just to Paris, Texas, things like that, just to get your head into that space of the the road trip.
Great film. That's such a good film,
isn't it?
Yeah. What's the director of that film? One of the greats. What's his?
Yeah, it was.
Wim Wenders, right? Or Wim I don't know how to say his name. Wim Wenders.
Yeah, Wenders. Yeah.
That's
it's great. Just got so much time in that film, hasn't it?
Yeah,
so much.
I love film. I think as musicians, I think most musicians appreciate the art form of film. Just the craft of creating it. Yeah.
Well, my son's off at university doing his final year at film.
Nice.
And isn't that cool? And he's an absolute film buff, So I as he grew up, I pestered him to death about music, and we had that whole relationship thing that you have with. Do you have children?
I do have 2 kids. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. What sort of ages are they?
One is 14 and the other is 3. So I tried to,
Right.
the most dramatic ages happen at the same time.
Great age gap. Well, I've got 5, and the youngest is 6, and the eldest now is 20. So,
Wow.
So I understand that kind of age gap. But this is the thing that you find with children is that you talk to them about your music.
Yeah.
And there's this point where they go, I hate that.
Yeah.
Oh, Dad, stop going on about that because that's not cool. That's not cool. And then suddenly they get to an age where they start playing back to you stuff that you play to them.
100% happened with my daughter.
Yeah, and then they go, Dad, this is so cool. And you go, and you kind of want to go, yeah, I told you.
Yeah.
But you can't. You're just so pleased that they got it right.
No, that 100% happened with my daughter, because in the beginning, I think she wasn't that interested at all. Well, for one thing, she and her friends just kind of discovered my first record, which surprised me. I'm much more interested in the last record or the second to last record. The first one, I was younger, less developed, but they kind of discovered it. My daughter played it on, Spotify in a car full of teenagers, and they were like, "What? This is your father? Like, what the hell?" And then I think she got the feedback like, "Oh, maybe that's kind of cool." So she started sharing it with her friends, and they really love it. So that's been nice for me. Is this, that feedback.
Yeah. So and you're cool Dad now.
I guess for the moment. And then the influences that I would always go on about Bernie Worrell, because I had the honor of knowing Bernie and playing with Bernie and trying to play her the talking. And now she loves the Talking Heads and a lot of those old classics she's rediscovered, just like you said, and shared with her friends. So yeah, it has kind of come full circle in that.
That's great. That's great. And I love that about music, that there, I think all of us go through a period in music where, or I think a lot of us do, where we're into pop, we're into what's current at the time or whatever. But I think those of us that truly get into music, then suddenly we have ears, and we suddenly then go, oh, hang on, that's good, isn't it? That's a bit more challenging, but it's great, and you go off in that other direction. I think everybody has to have their pop period, and I really quite look back on, I still have some of that in my collection. You look back on some of that stuff in a nice way, in a way, because at the end of the day, it kind of introduced you to music.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing wrong with it. It introduced you to music. It's just that your listening capacity grew at some point and actually went, oh yeah, but you can go back to it and you can go, oh, well, I can see why I like that when I was 12, 13.
Definitely. It's so interesting. I think back about the songs on the radio that were most prevalent when I was a kid. And I always think The Freaks Come Out at Night played. And the thing about living in New York City, we lived on a 3rd floor. And we actually the back of the apartment faced a parking lot.
Right.
And the parking lot was connected to, a whole housing complex where the parking lot was like a lot of activity was happening, including, early breakdancing and boom boxes, like quintessential New York, on cars late at night, and just going straight into my window. So that's one reason I call it Loud Apartment. And I think that's probably my primary music education. And what was playing is like, at that time, Gloria Estefan and Van Halen and like early hip hop, all back to back. It was less segmented. But like, that's what I remember more than anything. And then my parents were both classical musicians. So there was, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, all day in time. And then there was like the street music, the congueros, like truly something I miss because that's gone. That doesn't, but like late at night, hearing the sound of acoustic drums. So that was my music education.
Do you think you could bring some of that back, maybe?
I think the mentality of New York, and as much as I talk about people of New York, and it's changed so much. The tolerance has gone down so much, as in many cities. You know, the version of New York that I grew up in the 80s and 90s is totally over and gone, because if you set up some congas out on the street and started playing, the cops would be there in a minute and 45 seconds and shut you down. And the 80s, what were the 80s? I mean, before, I could go off on this, before they made graffiti a felony, there were people that were able to create absolute masterpieces in broad daylight.
Yeah.
You know? So those days are over. Yeah.
Maybe you can do it in Pennsylvania, though.
I don't know where.
I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what, if you can't do it in Pennsylvania,
yeah,
bring it to where I live in the southwest of England, right?
Yeah.
Because you could get away with whatever you like.
Oh, I will.
There's going to be no cops stopping you from doing that around here. I can tell you, my friend. You could sit on the street corner for hours and it'd be fine.
Yeah, no, I would like to. And, you know, it's funny. There's definitely places where it can happen. And I think that's part of what I realized about New York. And, of course, pre-pandemic, because now everything is that it really, we like to say it was cooked, fully cooked. Like, it's no longer simmering. Like, every inch of it had been picked over. Every corporation had pulled every little square foot out of it. The soul had been sucked out of it, to the point where it's like, as a New York-based artist, and I'll always be a New York-based, all right, we have to go other places now.
Yeah. We've got people listening. How interesting to understand the scenes that are now extinct. It is a shame. It is a shame when those things move on.
Yeah.
You mentioned Van Halen.
Yeah.
And you mentioned hip hop. I mean, were there because it was a great time then when you grew up with music.
Yeah.
Where people started to genre blend and bend, which was great. You know, and then suddenly you had that amazing track, Run DMC, Aerosmith.
Walk This Way.
Yeah, Walk This Way. You know, what seminal kind of tracks from that period, you know, in terms of that kind of melting pot, really stuck out for you?
You know, I'm not great when it comes to naming. There's some tracks, and actually Bill, I think, was one of the first. Bill Laswell was one of the first people to do that before Run DMC and Van Halen mixing. I don't have the name of the track handy, and I can think of a ton of underground musicians that were doing it. But I guess Public Enemy was doing that too with Anthrax, right? They were doing it. Fight the Power, right? There was a lot of that happening, but also it was just in terms of the curation. Like, when you turned on MTV, even in the 90s, I remember sitting there, and, you know, we had back to back, it was like, you know, Ice Cube or Dr. Dre, right? The period of the Chronic, and these videos are playing, which is amazing now to think that any of that content, you know, like would play, in terms of, you know, there's like a little drive-by scene in that one video, simulated. Nothing really happens in the Chronic. And then and then we'd hear, you know, it would be, you know, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and just back to back. So we just sat there, and we're like, okay. We weren't like, oh, let's go to the hip hop channel or the rock channel.
Yeah, and even you know, collectives like Gangstar and people like that. Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, that's what it was all about. And it's a shame in a way that we've kind of come full circle with that. And you had sort of like all of these set genres, and then we went through that period where it was a melting pot everywhere. Yeah. And that spread into the way things were curated as well. As you say, you know, MTV, it literally would be. Now, I think that's what made MTV at the time so exciting. It was literally one style and then another style and then another style. And now we've kind of gone back to, you know, let's try and put things in their little
you got to get
boxes.
in that box. And we get that a lot about the record. People saying, "Oh, it's this," you know, none of that is intentional. Like, we never sit down and say, "Oh, let's write a funk song, or let's make this one a little." It's more just, you know, seeing what happens, and it's happening like totally organically.
Yeah. How did this record come about?
Well, a lot of it had to do with the drummer, my good friend Tyrone Hamlet, who goes by Lockatron. He and I were playing with my friend Umara, and I had kind of been through a period where I was playing a lot, performing a lot, and just kind of stepped back. And interestingly, before the pandemic, I was just, I'm going to take a break from performing and focus on just recording and focus on trying to work on the sound that I want to get.
Good timing then.
Yeah, it was strangely like I had already started I thought we were able to put out 2 albums during the last 2 years because I was already kind of in that moment of being like, let me work on just getting back into the studio here. But Locke, he's like a true drummer, a true groove drummer, a true pocket drummer. And that's just all I think about in my head when I'm writing or when I want to play music is and it's surprisingly hard to find guys who play like that authentically, which Locke does entirely. Locke and I are both from New York. He spent a very long time playing on the street and the subway, playing with, a part of the breakdance movement. And he just has that. So I approached Bill and said, look, I got this project. I got this drummer. And I knew him already. We had already worked on a record, but we weren't close and we hadn't really worked together, in the studio, bass and percussion and drums. And so he said, all right, bring it by, let's try it. And there was absolutely no guarantee whatsoever it was going to go anywhere. Because one thing about Bill is he doesn't work on anything he doesn't feel like working on. And so we got in there and Lockatron, just the whole thing really took off. So it was really based on, I was playing congas and singing, Locke was playing drums and Bill was playing bass. A great day in my life. Then we added more layers and that worked. So I said, let's do it again. And that worked. So let's do it again. And that worked.
Yeah.
So now
and
it's momentum.
Yeah. And then you got other people involved as well.
Yeah. Well, Bill brought Peter Apfelbaum and Will Bernard in, which is those guys are just other level musicians. I mean, it's just incredible to work with. And then I had known DJ Logic for a while because I've actually met him through Bernie Worrell at a show we did with Bernie, where he just came up to me. It was like, this is awesome. Here's my number. Wrote it on a napkin and, in a marker, and I kept it. And for a long time, I was like, hey, let's work on something. And the opportunity finally came up with this project.
Was the number still on the napkin or had you transferred it over?
I had transferred it.
Yeah.
I transferred it. Yeah.
You can't stay safe with a napkin.
No. The napkin was gone like within days. And I have had experience like that where I've just had some piece of paper and you never get it back. So you got to digitize it while you can. So
that's great. And then Garrison Hawk as well.
Garrison, I've known for years. Garrison he's like a very close friend. I would consider him one of my best friends. Actually, the only reason I know Bill as well. So it all came in a way from Hawk. He used to go by Hawk and Hawkman, and then he kind of switched it up to Garrison and Hawk. We're like when my kids were born, he was there for both. Like little Jack, his kid was born, I was there. We're that level of like very, very close friends.
Yeah. I like Garrison. He's very laid back.
He is. He's just a great human being, just like a good person. And
he did one of these with me. He did one of these with me. Yeah.
No, he's a close friend. Yeah, talented as hell. Talented as hell.
You've got a great bunch of people around you with this, and I love it. I mean, we're was listening to it earlier with my colleague whilst we were working, and I was like struggling to work because it's a groove. Nice. It's a groove. We just wanted to, sort of rap over the top and dance a bit.
It came from the drum and bass. That's just a way of writing that we did for the last 2 projects, and it affects the music differently than if you sit there with a guitar and you write it and you try and add those other elements later. It's like the priority was the groove.
Yeah, and you get that. It's that there was something. There was definitely a throwback sound to it as well.
Yeah.
Where in the great scheme of things were you trying to hit in terms of sound?
Well, I go back further and further and further with music, just because there's a certain point where if you can listen to Fela and listen to James Brown,
Yeah,
and listen to Bob Marley, and listen to Lee Perry, and listen to Santana, who I do love, and listen to uh, just the great Latin percussionists, going back Ray Barretto and from New York, and just go back even further. Then I think listening wise, I'm going further and further just back. We realize it can't really be replicated in terms of its greatness, nor should it be. But it doesn't mean you can't create things that are relevant, because they're referencing that, but also bringing it to 2021 and 2022, which I think we did. Yeah.
And I also felt that there's when I was listening to it, that especially like the first track, felt that there was almost a kind of reference to stuff that was coming out in the 90s as well, with kind of a step beat, etc. to it as well. And again, that kind of shuffle that you almost had on albums by people like the Stereo MCs at the time and stuff like that. There's that kind of element coming through as well.
Yeah, or even 80s, I mean, I'm from that, and I grew up in that, and I grew up like listening to that, like through my window. There's a line in that first song, about the stereo and through my window, and that's very much like about my childhood, my version of New York, the vibrancy of that period. What's so interesting is that we were told that New York was garbage at that time, and we there was so much disrespect. Even being, my parents were both artists that came to the city, and we had relatives and family just trash New York all day, every day. People we knew, family would come to our apartment and I think I had moments of awareness. I used to walk up Amsterdam Avenue, and I would see this. I tell this story a lot, but I would see this handball court fully covered in an image of a tiger by Bill Blass, like an entire handball court. When I was like, I knew that was a great work of art, and then they tore it down, and it was gone. It's gone, and they put some stupid like a dinosaur, sculpture,
which cost a fortune, and it was awful. Yeah, right.
The same spot, they spent like $1 million to put some dinosaur. And then I was in Chicago, and I opened this art book, and I opened it, and I see that, and I was like, oh my God, they documented this, and now it's been replicated around the world by people wanting to be graffiti art. So I kind of knew that, and that was happening. And the Rocksteady crew, they were famous for kind of innovating breakdancing in Rocksteady Park, and that was across the street from where I grew up. So that was kind of happening there. Yeah.
Yeah, what a wonderful place to grow up.
It was.
Yeah,
it was. I love it.
Why should anyone rubbish where people grow up? I mean, where I was born, people have always rubbished. So I had the same here, where the place where I was born is Dunstable, and over here I've had so many people over the years go, "Really, you were born there?"
Yeah. It's actually profoundly rude to ever tell a child where they live. It's not a good thing.
Isn't it?
It shows like a pretty complete lack of any manners. Yeah.
Yeah. Or respect for fellow humans, really. Yeah. I mean, and the other thing is that people live within their own reality as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, now I've moved from the southeast of England to the southwest of England. I live in the countryside now. I live, in a much more, compared with how it is now where I grew up, and actually where the village where I moved to and then grew up for most of my life is actually quite rural. But now it's going back there. Now it's so overbuilt, and it's much, much bigger. And here's because it's a bit to the edge. This has maintained its ruralness a lot longer, But this is changing, and this will change, and houses are going up here fast, and it will all change. That's the thing. Everywhere changes.
Yeah.
You know, but you live within your own reality in an area, and you make things work within what you've got as well. And it's, you know, some of your experiences there, looking at some of those, the vibrancy of what was going on around you will not be something that other people will have experienced elsewhere, where it might have been quiet and it might have been more peaceful and it might have been nice and everything else, but they wouldn't have had that vibrancy. They wouldn't have had that, you know.
No, I realize I've come to terms with that. Yeah, you're man. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, because I absorb that, and that's partly what I'm bringing. And you know, there is a certain thing where I played with some like younger guys that went to study and, you know, got a master's degree in jazz, or you know, it's like, and it's hard to replicate. And I feel like everybody in this project, you know, and is really bringing something like truly authentic, in terms of, you know, their perspective, and that's what an ensemble of musicians is what they're bringing from their heart, and that this group of, what a joy to work with each and every one of those.
Do you know what? And I'm not decrying that, you know, it's some people can learn to play really well, you know, go up through the learning process and study music and learn it really well and become very, very proficient at their instruments. But you probably will attest to this as well. But I have found so many musicians over the years who are so proficient at their instrument and yet just don't have the song.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, you feel it. And now I'm more aware and attuned to each, like, it's almost what every person is bringing. And that's what, I mean, this project, you know, DJ Logic is bringing so much, and he's just thriving right now. He just did like 4 nights at the Blue Note or 3 nights at the Blue Note. And, you know,
cool.
Fred Wesley stopped by. I mean, he's a DJ Logic. So to have him come and bring his energy is amazing. And, you know, Bill Laswell, his history speaks for itself. But as a musician, I don't think I until I started to play, realized how powerful he is as a bass player, that every note is sending vibrations and energy. And to have Lakatron come and be able to like sync with that was truly.
Yeah.
We're going to keep doing it.
Hey, if you're having fun, why stop?
Yeah, we're going to keep doing it.
That's absolutely right. So what does the rest of 2022 hold for you, sir?
Well, I'm going to start recording the next project right away.
Great. You're loving it that much, you're starting again.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we're going to keep rolling. And I think we're going to do two albums. And I think, you know, there's some more people I want to bring in. I was keeping this core group absolutely intact. There's some more people I want to bring in, friends, to add to it. And I think we're gonna push in 2 different directions musically. You know, there is a fair amount of, you know, dub influenced music in the last 2 records. And I said, like, we're not trying to sound any way. That would be the only exception, is that I was listening to a lot of dub, a lot, when we recorded that. And I was specifically listening to a lot of dub that Bill had worked on. And I'll just digress for a second, but I never did that in the past. Like when I worked with Bernie Worrell, I didn't like listen to a whole lot of Bernie before playing with him. And in hindsight, it's a mistake to do that. I wish I had, because later in life, when I got deeper into Bernie's work, I was like, man, I can't believe that I had the opportunities to work with him. And if I had heard more of this, you know, so I tried not to make that same mistake. Say, look, I'm working with Bill, which to me is amazing. And I'm listening to what he's done more, and, you know, writing some of those songs for that purpose. So I think we're going to do a whole album that just really pushes into the dub territory and expands on that. And another one that is really based on the world funk fusion, you know, thing.
Called Road Trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
called Wilderness or Into the
Cool.
Wilderness.
Into the Wilderness. There we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah,
That's it. We named it. That's the next title
that's
on
it.
this show. Done.
If I don't see it as that, I want to know why.
No. You can't take it back. We already made the decision.
Yeah, we've said it. No, that's brilliant. For people that have now been, you know, we've warmed their appetite, having heard you speak about your music. Where can they get your music?
Loudapartment.com. Just think of a loud apartment.
Just think of a loud apartment. It's
Yeah.
not here at the moment, but it could be there.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, it is downstairs because all the kids are downstairs screaming their heads off.
There you go.
Right.
A loud apartment, and that means loud as in full of life and vibrancy and energy, not loud like a jackhammer or a car alarm. The good loud. Loudapartment.com. It's all there.
Yeah, go there, folks. Get what you can while you can, because you know who knows.
That's right. I might go into the wilderness and never come back.
Exactly. So no, do support Nevaris and what he's doing. Go to the website. You know, pay for it. Pay for music, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
what a kind thought. Yeah.
Well, yeah, isn't it a kind thought? Isn't it amazing how you know, people might think that they should pay for music?
If anything, I want 2 more. We need some bread to keep it going. So
yeah. No, absolutely. It's one of those amazing things. Every time I talk to somebody and I say you really should pay for some of your music, they go, "Well, why, man? I can get it for free." And you go, "Well, hey, for a start, you're not getting it for free because you're paying a subscription service, right? So somebody's getting your money, and B, where do you think music comes from, right? Yeah. You know, like when you were a kid and I was a kid, parents told you money doesn't grow on trees. Nowadays, it's music doesn't grow on trees.
It doesn't, right? and it's a lot of hard work, and you know, especially to maintain. You know, we're working with analog Fender Rhodes, Hammond organs. It's not,
yeah. These things need fixing occasionally. Yeah.
But the show must go on, and if you're an artist that needs to create, you just got to keep creating. There's no other option.
No, absolutely. Nevaris, my friend, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I hope you've enjoyed the experience too.
Absolutely.
We will make sure that the links are put on this so that people can share it around, etc., etc. And for everyone that was watching, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you again another week. Bye for now.
All right. Take care.
Bye.